Today we're kind of mixing it up a little bit, aren't we? So I've got a special guest, Jodie Powell from A Place to Ponder podcast. And yeah, welcome, Jodie.
Well, I guess it's kind of the trenches and A Place to Ponder podcast.
It is. Sorry,
today.
yeah, I just glossed over that. It's a collab. It's a collab episode, people. So come on.
And also, I feel like the reason why this all came about is because I was stalking your Instagram. Don't know how I got to it, but I found it.
Cash.
And obviously, I saw that you did this podcast, but also your own sort of experience. I'm sure your listeners would love to hear about. And so I thought, why not? Let's collaborate. Let me ask you some questions. Give the people what they want to hear, which is about your career.
Sure. I don't know if the people want it, but sure, why not?
Well, if no one else is interested, I'm definitely interested. So it's a chance for me to find out about your career and then just record it for other people to see too.
Lovely. That sounds good.
So I think we need to start at the very beginning. How on earth did you get into film? Where did the passion come from?
Okay, cool. So I always just enjoyed watching films when I was a kid. So I guess it kind of starts from early on in my life. The more notable films would be Star Wars, Harry Potter. What else? I always just loved sci-fi. I always loved the escapism that film provided and kind of losing myself within these worlds. I guess I just don't like reality. And so I kind of found myself wanting to escape reality into these cool worlds with, in space, in the wizard world, maybe more of that fantasy kind of genre. But yeah, I just really enjoyed watching films, and I thought it would be really awesome if I could contribute towards that in any way, shape or form.
So in terms of with that in mind, what was your first instinct? Was it ever acting?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah, you know what? It might have been acting. Maybe it probably was acting, that first initial, oh, what can I do? Because I remember my mum took me to a Saturday drama school. And I did one lesson and I hated it.
Really?
I hated it. I don't know. When I saw all these other people kind of doing their thing, just got really nervous and shy. I was definitely one of those shy kids, didn't really have too much confidence. And so definitely just kind of took myself out of that situation. And I was like, oh, what's the next best thing is behind the camera. And then just got interested in making little films, really. Obviously kind of studied film, studied media. It was media production. And then studied media. It was media studies. It was a BTEC during sixth form, which was a lot more practical, and just kind of found myself making little films and always kind of going hammer when making those films because I was truly obsessed. And I was like, wow, I was watching all of these great films and I was like, I want it to be like that. And I don't know, just wouldn't stop until I kind of reached that or felt that it was the best that I could do. I think I've always been like that. Maybe I don't know where that stems from, but I'm sure if you did some digging, I could probably find out. But yeah, just always had a real interest in making films and would make films in my spare time with Lego and doing stop motion animation. And I just remembered the feeling I would get when my mum or parents would watch it and be like, oh my God, this is amazing. And
showing their friends and you showing your friends.
Yeah, exactly. And just kind of that feeling that it gave me, I just loved it. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I don't know. I just didn't really have too much of a plan. I just kind of really enjoyed doing it. And so kept doing it over time. And guess here I am.
Yeah. And would you say, because I feel with a lot of the experience of people that have a creative interest or a creative brain, a lot of people I think would say that there's often a battle with parents. It's not really a set in stone career. You kind of have to forge your own path, and that can be quite unpredictable. And I think parents often want the safest route for their kids. And did you ever feel you had to kind of prove to your parents that this was a career that you could, make something of and live off of, or were they always quite supportive of you?
They were always supportive of me, for sure. Yeah, they didn't really box me in or tell me that I had to do this or that. They were super open and super supportive in that process. And so, I definitely wouldn't be where I am today without their support and open-mindedness about the potential of having a career in film or media, because like you said, it's very untraditional, and that can scare a lot of parents. And when they hear that, and they're like, oh God, like
yeah, they're like, oh, so we're going to be funding your life till you're 55.
Exactly. But I guess I always knew there was it had potential. And like I said, whenever I do anything, I just go hammer. I go like full send on it, like 100%. And I knew, I don't know, I just knew I would make it in a weird way, because I just truly loved doing it. And I think I definitely just saw me being older, being a filmmaker. And I think when you have that kind of end goal in mind, when the process becomes easier.
Yeah, of course. And you're really kind of like, without getting too sort of airy-fairy about it, but I guess you're essentially manifesting it. You're putting all of your energy into something that you fully, wholeheartedly believe is going to happen. And I think that's really powerful. I heard, like, I've been hearing quite a lot of things like about deluding yourself into like, even if you doubt yourself, you've got to delude yourself into believing that you can achieve it, and like have no plan B. Because if you have a plan B, you're kind of like wasting your energy, because you're hedging your bets. Whereas if you only have a plan A, then everything you have like goes into that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I feel if you only have one plan, I guess you've got to make it work.
To make it work.
I don't think I ever had a plan B or a plan C. Maybe it was just like getting an office job, but like that never crossed my mind. To be fair, I used to work in a supermarket, and that was kind of my first proper job. And I did that, and I realized I would never want to do it again. And so I started from a place of I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so my plan A was my only plan.
Yeah, I guess. So I work in an office now, and hopefully no one's watching. But it makes you realize that it's not what you want to do for the rest of your life. Like, I want to be out doing things, and I think sometimes it is figuring out what doesn't work for you, which gives you kind of like the answer that you're looking for. Because I feel like a lot of people that perhaps maybe watch your podcast or listen to mine is like trying to figure. So I actually recently was speaking to this actor, and he was like, we're all creatives and we all want to have a creative output, but there's this period of adjustment, which maybe started with you, thinking, oh, maybe I'll be an actor. You wanted to be creative, and as a child you see, oh, acting, that is, that's films, like actors are in films, so you think that's the route, and then you realize, oh wait, actually I'm not this sort of outlandish, outgoing child, maybe that's not for me. And you're kind of like figuring out the route that works for you.
Yeah.
And once you find that, I think you got to just run with it.
Yeah.
And not get distracted, because it's really
Yeah. And like, I think I'm quite lucky, because I found something that I love doing early on. And like, I think a lot of people these days, there's so much choice with what you can do. And it's hard to make a decision and fully commit to something. And like, people find that later on in life or early on in life. I think it was Alan Rickman, who played Snape in Harry Potter, only found film acting in his 40s. And like, that's, he's probably one of the best actors to have ever lived, and like played probably one of the best roles. Everyone knows Snape. Everyone knows who he is. And so, I guess I was just really lucky to find that early on. The enjoyment that I had for film definitely translated into the process of making films. And so, I guess I'm quite lucky in that sense to have found something early, and I can commit to it early. And I'm now, I've laid the foundation, and I'm now kind of, sowing those oats.
Yeah. So let's talk specifically about your role today.
Sure.
Like, in the broader sense, like, what would you describe your title is, and your position on a set? What does that look like?
So my title is Director of Photography, or it can be called a cinematographer. Both the same roles, just called different things. I think a cinematographer is probably more based within narrative film. and a DOP is maybe a bit more of a commercial music video kind of term, but essentially both the same things. And so what I do is, funnily enough, I direct the photography. And so I work with the director very, very closely. And so basically the director comes to me and says, oh, I want to do this. This is my idea. And I'm the person that kind of actualizes that idea and says, okay, to do that, you're going to need this camera, this lens, this light, in this location to make it look and feel like that. And so, yeah, what I do is create the look and feel of the image. And that can mean many things and has a lot of things involved in it. It's not just cameras, it's not just lights, it's like art direction, like the mise en scène, the way the actor is, turned. Like there are so many elements to it. But yeah, essentially I help actualize the idea of the director and kind of bring that to life.
So do you ever get into situations where, like, I mean, obviously the director's, being trained as well, but where they're maybe not as, because you're essentially mind reading in a sense. Obviously you're having conversations, but you're kind of having to get into the brain of the director. Are there any times when you're literally like, I actually can't figure out what your sort of vision is and how to then make that into something?
Yeah, for sure. It happens all the time. But then you try and have a conversation with them and you try and break that down. And even if you're still lost, then you'll probably just end up winging it on the day. Although that's not a good position to be in, because then you're kind of leaving it up to chance. The way I kind of approach it is, I'm lucky because I work with the directors that I work with quite frequently, and so we have a pre-existing relationship about how each other work, and it's a give and take kind of thing, and they usually kind of communicate, or I kind of figure them out early on. Sometimes there doesn't need to be much communication. Sometimes we understand, we are already on the same page, but let's say there's a new director that I'm working with. Basically we meet up, kind of have a coffee, a bit of a kind of catch up over it. They send me the treatment, which is the idea deck, which kind of outlines the idea. And so I'm like, okay, cool. Already have an idea going into the conversation. And yeah, we meet up and basically hash it out. Like I ask them a bunch of questions, mainly like, is this at night? Is this at day? Where do you see this? Is this inside, outside? Do you want to shoot on film? I always ask, do you want to shoot on film? Because shooting on film is great. But usually the answer is no. But yeah, you just have to be super open and not scared to ask questions. If you find yourself in that position, you just need to kind of talk your way out of it and into like kind of the clear vision. And that's just done with communication. Communication is super important in film, and sometimes it isn't there, and when it isn't there, you see it on set, and that's when things start to go wrong. And I mean, it still happens to me today where to be fair, it happened to me maybe last week on a shoot where me and the director kind of planned a shot, and but in his head he saw it differently, and then come the day we were both setting up the same shot, but it was two different shots. And luckily we managed to kind of hash it out in that moment. But there's still some times where there's so much going on set that things do slip, and even I find myself in a position like, oh god, okay, cool, that wasn't what I thought, but let's roll with it kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, an answer to your question is just you have clear communication between everyone basically.
And do you feel valued on a set, in the sense of you're able to say, I hear you, I see your vision, but actually I think if we did it this way, it would pay off? Is there that kind of flexibility, or is it the case of this is the vision, this is how you get from A to B, you're in charge of executing it?
Yeah, each shoot is different, I think. Each shoot is very different, although I now feel like I've reached a level where I do have that respect, and people respect me and my ideas only because they have seen my previous work, have worked with me before, and that's why a lot of the people I currently work with are people who I've worked with before, is because, you know, you kind of gel and fit together and know how each other work, and we're like, oh no, like, you know, we can leave it to Toby, we can leave this, I don't need to micromanage him because he knows what he's doing, I like what he does, etc., etc. And like, sometimes it's hard to have your input on things because there are so many things at play when on a shoot. Like, you have to you kind of have to chat with the client, you have to chat with either, if you're shooting a music video, like the label, the artist, their manager, like the stylist, like everyone pitches in at some point.
There's a lot of opinions, basically.
So many opinions, and you have to learn how to deal with that and to kind of navigate that space, because it can be pretty treacherous when everyone is shouting their opinion at one time. Like, you know, sometimes on set, you know, communication does break down, or you kind of hit a wall and you don't know where to turn next, and it's super unhelpful when everyone's shouting and saying their opinion, because really there should be one opinion, and that is the director and mine, maybe. But you know, usually me and the director have the same opinion. You know, we have done the prep work to suggest that, and sometimes, yeah, like when you do hit a wall, a lot of people chip in, and it's just counterproductive because you just waste time managing people's opinions. And I guess that's just like people's egos trying to feel like they need to say things, and you need to have their input. Like, I find that a lot in commercials. When you work with agencies, you're lovely people, but you know, sometimes you know, you all have your own opinion, and you know, just because you're being asked, you know, in an email thread that you've been like CC'd in with like 10 other people, doesn't mean you need to give like you know, your say, because sometimes that is just super unhelpful.
Basically, shut the fuck up and let the professionals do their work.
Look, I don't want to be so upfront about it, but you know, sometimes, yeah.
No, of course. I mean, I think that happens, you know, in all walks of life. There's always going to be opinions. People have different visions for things, especially if you're working with talent as well. You know, at the end of the day, this is their face on the front of it. So I'm sure there's going to be some part of them that is like kind of a bit controlling over the whole thing, because it's their image. Course. And I guess trust is kind of the foundations of any good relationship, work, love, whatever. But in those sorts of situations, for anyone that's kind of like up and coming in the industry, would you have any advice, any tips that you've learned along the way of how to best manage people and how to kind of like navigate those situations to avoid any kind of friction?
Yeah, for sure. It would be to pick your battles. Not every battle is yours to win, and nor is it yours to fight. And so sometimes you just need to take a step back, let the director, producer hash it out with whoever, and then you move, kind of thing. But then other times it is worth fighting over, and it's like, if you really saw like this shot going a certain way and it's vital to the story, to the look, to the feel, you know, stand up for yourself, you know, say, no, hang on, this is what I think and what I think matters, which is hard to do because, you know, on a film set, there's so much going on at the same time, and like, you know, you don't want to be like another like reason why it's being like kind of slow. But at the end of the day, you know, you're on that film set for a reason, and your opinion is valid, but you just have to work out and kind of pick your moments about it.
Have you ever struggled with imposter syndrome?
It's a good question. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we all do.
Like, I'm thinking kind of in terms of these moments when you are on set and it is, you know, your time to step up and have your say. Is there ever that sort of feeling of like, well, am I kind of qualified enough? Is there that level of doubt?
Yeah, for sure. I think that always happens. It always happens. But I don't know, like in a weird way, I feel like I've kind of earned it. I've done like a lot of hustling over these last years, and like so much free work, like so much that like I feel confident within my own skill set and within my own person and within the work that I have made, where I can approach situations and, some daunting situations and be like, look, this is going to be okay. Like, you've done this. You're with good people. They're going to carry you through. If you fail, they will carry you through, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I feel like in a non-egotistical way, I feel the odds are stacked in my favor, if that makes sense. So I don't have those moments where I do freak out. And like, sometimes you'll catch me in like maybe working with a big artist, or there's so much pressure to get this one shot, and then you might see me like sweat a little bit. But no, like generally I feel quite comfortable with what I've done and what I can do.
Yeah, and I also guess those are the moments that really prove to you that you are, like, you do know what you're doing and you are worthy of where you're at. Because if you go into a situation with so much expectation and pressure and you still manage to completely like do it so much justice, then when you come back and you reflect, that's the moment to be like, if I'm ever feeling stressed, I managed to do that.
Yeah.
And that's kind of reassurance in and of itself.
Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I've achieved a lot, and that helps you kind of with confidence, and yeah, it kind of stacks the odds in your favor when you're going up for another job or whatever. And to be fair, like another point is that I'm never on my own. I always have a team, and the team is like the most valuable thing a person like me could ever want, because I know they will have my back anytime. And it's not just me. If it was all on me, then I would be worried, because I'd be like, oh, I would have forgot this and whatever. But when you have a team and you have a group of people all pushing in the same direction, all wanting that same goal, you're fine. Honestly, like it's about finding your team and putting trust and respect in them, and they'll always come through.
So are you able to select who you work with, or is it at the mercy of the director?
Most of the time I do select my crew, and I have a great like pool of people that I select, mainly even some people that I went to university with and are now still working with, and we maybe graduated in like 2016, so like a while ago now, sorry. Yeah, so a while ago, and it's nice to be still working with those people. And, it's like I said, I already have relationships with them. So I don't need to go over to them and tell them to get the camera ready. Like if I do that, if I go over, the camera's already set and like it's already with the lens that I want, the filters that I want, because communicated beforehand that this is the rundown, but B, they know what I want. And, I think when it comes to picking crew, you have to be good at your job, obviously, but yeah, I think Craig said this on a podcast, on one of these previous podcasts. It's like there comes a point where everyone kind of knows what they're doing, and then you kind of pick crew and the people you want with like solely down to them and their personality and whether they fit the job, or if you might need to be quite sensitive with crew if it's a sensitive subject matter, or if you're filming a certain scene, you might need certain crew who are going to pull through and be there and like think on their feet a little bit. And so yeah, crew is be good at your job, but also just be a nice person. Yeah, get on with people, chat to people, like take note of their interests. And like, I'm not saying be fake a friendship or anything like that, but like just talk to people. And I think it goes a long way, especially when you're on set and times are tough. You need people who know that are going to be there for you, and who are going to maybe crack a joke at the right time, lift the mood. It's more than just a skill. It's kind of it's the energies all combining together, and that's that's the best thing ever, really.
Yeah, I bet it's such like a magic feeling when things are going smoothly. You're surrounded by people that you trust and that you really admire their work as well. Like that just must be one of the best feelings ever. So yeah, I want to talk about your work because, like I said, I stalked your Instagram, and we're pals now. I know your work history. And there's some pretty cool names on there.
Yeah, there are.
So let's talk about the Nux and Loyal Kana music video.
Sure.
Because before I even knew you, I was a fan of the video. Now
nice.
I know you. I'm
Sick.
meeting the person that, director of photographied it. If that's what you say.
Yeah. Why not?
So how did that come about, first and foremost?
So yeah, that video, that was a good one. That was a landmark shoot for so many reasons. How did that come about? So that was with a director called Director LX. Been working with him for some time now. Hopefully need to get him on the podcast soon. He's quite an elusive. Yes, there we go. Jodie's telling you to come on, Alex. We're coming for you. But yeah, he's very mysterious man to some. Like not on the socials too much. But I think people see his work and recognize greatness. So yeah, that was, to be fair, I think that was kind of one of the first jobs that I did with Lex. Maybe that might have been the second or third job that I did, but felt like the first big one that I did with him. And yeah, it was quite a bit of a ragtag shoot in a sense, because there wasn't much budget, as is the music video world. But yeah, we kind of shot it all on an estate in Highbury, kind of very close to Clissold Park for the people that live in Stokey. We shot it all on this estate, and then we shot it at a chicken shop in Finsbury Park. And it was just, yeah, it just, everything kind of aligned on that shoot. And it was one of those magical moments where when we were filming it, we knew it was going to be something special.
Yeah.
But we didn't know how special. And obviously when the video came out, it got a mad reception, and people still know that video to this day. And it's kind of rare for like music videos to have that like kind of test of time, even though it was like 3 years ago. It's the way things roll these days as a music video coming out every day, and it's cool for people to still recognize that.
Yeah.
But obviously it was a landmark shoot, because it was kind of my first time working with Lex, and our relationship has grown leaps and bounds since then. Secondly, it was with two artists with which I loved, like Nux, he's a G, but like Loyal as well. Like I'd known Loyal Kana for a while, and like before I think I even moved to London, and so the fact that I could shoot with him was wicked. And the weird thing was I ended up shooting with him the following week after, and then like, yeah, it was cool just chatting with him, because obviously he kind of recognized me and stuff, and I was like, oh, and we're just kind of chatting a bit. Yeah, it was just one of those shoots where everything all just kind of came together. Like the styling was great, it fitted the location we were in. I managed to get like a massive favor on this big zoom lens, which basically was the style and kind of stamp on the video. And the video was definitely more of like a fashion editorial kind of vibe rather than a classic rap music video on the block.
Yeah.
And so I really liked it because it was on the block and it was a rap video, but it felt very, very different to what you would expect that kind of genre of song and visuals would look like. And obviously the subject matter to the song, I think it just hit at the right time with like the BLM movement and people being represented, and I think it was just everything just came together for that shoot. And yeah, people loved it. It looked great for my portfolio, shooting with these kind of big artists, it looking the way it did. But it just having, I think that video just had gravity, and like it still has gravity. And
it's a great song as well, which I think always helps.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Yeah. That's another point. I think people know that song through the video and know the video through the song, and those two are combined. And like when you're making music videos, that's what you strive for. And it's so rare that you listen to a song and think of the video, and it's one of those magic moments of the two just work so nicely together. Yeah,
for sure. That's actually such a lovely way to put it. And I guess that's when things stand out, because like you say, and this is actually something I wanted to talk about, there are, especially with the music industry at the moment, like music is being flung out left, right and center. There's obviously this huge change and shift in the industry with the rise of TikTok and having to get that sort of like earworm worthy moment. And do you find that kind of video follow is like trying to chase that format, because obviously that's what is kind of selling at the moment? And does it impact the way that, like, the process of the way that the art is produced, if that makes sense? Like, are you feeling a change in your own work, or are you trying to fight a change in your own work and sort of stick to your learnings and the way that you were taught, if that makes sense?
For sure. Yeah, 100% it's changing. It's becoming less art and more content, which is fine. That's just the way things move. But yeah, but then it puts us filmmakers in a weird position, because we can no longer really make the things that we want to make in the style. In my eyes, like, yeah, we're no longer producing art, and it's just fast content. You know, like you have fast fashion, now it's fast content kind of thing, and it takes away from like the, you know, hours of work you would put into like making like a, I don't know, like a Louis Vuitton jacket, and like going with something from Boohoo, and it's like that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a good way to put it.
And so yeah, us as filmmakers, we have to adapt to that situation, because otherwise we will not be in work. I think it's so new that no one really kind of knows what to do. Even these big companies don't know what to do with TikTok. And like, I got brought on for a Mont Blanc shoot last week, and I was shooting TikTok, the TikToks on it, even though there was like a fashion film going on. I was there shooting the TikToks, which...
And when you say you were shooting the TikToks, were you literally stood there with an iPhone?
No.
With cameras?
With a big camera.
I always think surely they're still shooting it on a big camera, because, you know, the production still looks good quality, even though it's on a TikTok. But I think almost the fact that it's a short format makes you think less of the production, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I don't mean that in like a bad way. I mean it as in like there's less people are spending less time on it, and so there's no thought there of what might have gone into it.
Like I said, it's like fast content, and with fast content it's usually mindless. Like it's just something to catch your attention quickly, and then boom, on to the next one. And like that's the system we work in, and unfortunately, like that, you can't do much if the system dictates that. You can't do much. But then, you know, every now and then there will be a mold breaker, and there will be someone that kind of merges the two. And yeah, like kind of going back, I think that's where us filmmakers need to get creative, because things are always ever changing. But it's up to you to change with it. If you don't, you're going to get left behind, and you know, if you do, you'll catch that and ride that wave. And so, you know, you need to be open-minded to the processes and the way in which you do things. And
I guess you've got to adapt, basically.
Yeah.
Because also it must be a difficult situation, because in some situations, people that don't follow the trends are then the ones that stand out, but then equally you're gonna miss out on work if you don't follow the trends to an extent. So it's kind of like a no man's land of
and
the unknown, basically.
Yeah, and I think, you know, you can always kind of stand with your own ideas and do things a certain way, and like people do that and are recognized for that. But for the majority, you'll need to adapt. I'm just trying to think of like an example of someone kind of sticking, like maybe like a Damien Hirst. He does his like formaldehyde work, and he's stuck with that. But then like you've got this whole NFT thing coming through, to be fair, of which he jumped on as well. And so it's like, you know, you have to be aware of what is going on. And at the end of the day, it is a business, and you can't always be making art like for yourself in your own way, because that's not the system we work in. You know, creatives and filmmakers need to have one eye open to the game, but one eye on their own kind of creative message and what they want to say. And then I think that's when it says a lot about a person, when they can merge the two and cross that bridge and make people stop and be like, oh, that's cool, that's new. Like, oh, I like, how did they do that? And, you know, it's being creative in that space and kind of conforming, but also crossing those bridges at the same time.
Yeah, you've raised some interesting points, and I want to make sure I don't forget
Sure.
any of them.
I hope I'm making sense.
No,
In my head, I'm
doing
a bit like, what am I saying? But yeah.
so overwhelming being the interviewer.
Yeah. It's a bit crazy.
Also, I've thrown your feng shui off because you normally sit here.
Yeah.
And I've taken your seat.
Yeah,
and
it's
so
true.
maybe the vibes are just off for your brain.
No, it's all good as long as I'm making sense.
But you're making sense. Well, I'm understanding what you're saying.
Okay, cool. Films are no longer widescreen; they're vertical, and you kind of have to move with the times and get down with it, really.
Yeah. If you snooze, you lose. As the saying
exactly.
goes. So you also touched on the fact that you have to have one eye on the game whilst also trying to like develop your own style. And something that we discussed, because in our sort of pre-telephone call before now, is the fact that you, and I hope you don't mind me exposing this, you can cut it out if you do,
fine.
but that you do also
exposed.
do
Toby Leary exposed
on your own podcast as well. Sorry.
That's all right.
No, it's not a big expose. You do shoot corporate videos, and it's not something that you are necessarily going to post on your socials because it's not particularly exciting for you creatively, and perhaps it's not particularly exciting for the people that follow you. But it is the reality of making a living off of being a creative. There are going to be some jobs that are maybe less interesting but pay high, and I think it is maybe a bit of a misillusion. Is that a word? Misillusion?
I think so. I'm really bad at English.
I'm just going to roll with it. Misillusion that you can essentially, even the creative industry is a business, and there are going to be elements of it that are going to be slightly more boring. And is it kind of like giving people false hope? They're kind of trying to chase this idea that they want to be a creative and, they want to live this really exciting, glamorous lifestyle. And that's actually not what it is always like. There are going to be low budget productions which are going to be highlights of your career, i.e. like the Nux thing, but it probably wasn't all glamour. And then there's also going to be times when you are just shooting a corporate video. What is like your reality of your job?
With social media, you can make yourself look a certain way. We see that with IG models, like all these people, and obviously you can do that within your own career, and I think film is a big one. Instagram is used a lot with film to showcase your work, to showcase you're busy in a sense, but even when you're not busy. And you can kind of fake it a little bit. Obviously everyone's kind of guilty to a sense, but I don't post the jobs that I don't think are worthy, but don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's just me kind of curating my career and the way I want to be perceived, and kind of curating my future job prospects in a way. It's like if someone sees that I shoot a certain video, they're going to want me to shoot that video again. So I'm not going to be posting all about like kind of the corporate work I do, because I don't want to be doing that. Maybe just to also backtrack a little bit, I don't do too much corporate work right now.
Okay.
I did a lot coming up. I don't do it now. I'm very lucky. I can be quite selective with my work, and luckily kind of fund my career via low budget music videos and now commercial work, which tends to be a bit bigger budget. But kind of going back maybe to this Mont Blanc shoot that I shot the TikTok content for, it's like I don't shoot TikTok content, and like I don't want to be known as the guy who does that, but that's the way things are moving. And they were like, "Oh, we're going to pay you this much," and I was like, "Yeah, cool, like sweet." And so I'm happy to admit that it wasn't a work of art, but it was a fun shoot. They were shooting like a fashion film alongside, and kind of knew people there, and so went along. And I really enjoyed it because it was almost a bit carefree, the way in which I was shooting. Usually there's so much pressure on me to get this shot, to get that shot. And they were like, he didn't care about the TikTok. They're like, yeah, just shoot it. And I was like, all right, cool. So I kind of rocked up on a bit of a whim and shot it, and then went home and earned a decent amount for it. And so, when kind of operating in the film or any creative world, you're always going to have those jobs where the corporate jobs, or the not like the kind of more corporate businessy jobs where you earn more money but it's less creative, and then you'll have the creative jobs, which are way more creative and probably what you want to be doing, but there's almost no / low pay kind of thing. And so it's a balance between the two. And obviously you're probably going to be shouting about one more than the other.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of what you want to do. But yeah, it's, it's a game and you have to balance it. You have to work it out, and, you need to earn money at the end of the day, and you shouldn't feel bad about doing jobs that you might not kind of align with what you want to be doing, but one day you'll get there.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's really interesting, this whole idea of, like, I almost think in society, without getting too deep, we're very we're very polarized all the time. It's like, one end of the spectrum, people think showing pure highlights is damaging. It's sort of almost false advertising of who you are. Say you're a model, you're only posting your best photos. And then on the other hand, there's like, be really open about everything and blah, blah, blah. But actually, at the end of the day, there is a middle ground, there is a grey area. And also, like you were saying, you don't want to attract the type of work that you actually don't want to be doing, if that makes sense. Like, you should be able to curate the personality and your own style to people without being criticized for the fact that you're not being totally honest about actually where you're earning your money, or do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure.
It feels like there's judgment both ways.
Yeah. And like I owe my career to the corporate work that I did when I first moved to London and first started, because without that there would have been no way for me to survive. And so you got to do what you got to do to get where you want to go, and yeah, you shouldn't have any regrets about that. And like, yeah. I don't. Like, that funded my early career living in London, and like some of the corporate jobs are actually quite fun, and like, well, not fun in a sense of like filming fun. It was more of like, it was just quite funny to witness, like the way in which the corporate world is.
And it's weird.
Yeah, and yeah, it was it was entertaining more than fun. I should put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird. It's difficult being a young person living in London. Like, I did a catering job for like this corporate thing, like after work one day, and it was an eye opener.
Yeah. Was it like the waiting?
Yeah.
Yeah, I did that. I did one, and I was like, nah.
Really? Yeah.
Not again.
But, like, I was serving them really nice canapes that were made by some decent chefs, and they were looking at me like I was giving them a dead cat or something. It's a whole other world.
Yeah. But yeah, I did that. You have to find your feet in this industry, and that can be via like a bar job or whatever, yeah, whatever it is, you need to do what you need to do. I've even considered Uber driving at times.
Too bad, I've considered it as well.
But yeah, like, if you get to that stage and you need to do that, there's no shame in that. There is, if anything, you might enjoy that process. And like, I think the events that happen in your life are there for a reason, and you can learn from anything that you do, and it molds you as a person. And so I wouldn't be where I am today without kind of doing all those, crappy jobs or whatever. And yeah, you understand yourself by going through these things.
Yeah, for sure. So coming back to work that you've produced,
yeah,
you have also worked on a like fashion video for Jaded.
Yeah,
that you were nominated for an award.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
So how does it work with the whole award situation? Like, do you nominate yourself, or does someone else nominate?
Yeah. So I don't have an agent. I'm not signed.
Is that a conscious decision, or it just hasn't kind of worked out?
It hasn't worked out yet, but conscious to a point. Although, a little secret, a few of them have started to email me, and I'm going for some meetings very soon, which is all very exciting. Obviously they've seen my work, and they like it. And yeah, it's definitely an aim of mine to get signed maybe by the end of the year or next year, but I'm in no rush to do that. I just think it's all quite exciting. And so, yeah, obviously being freelance, you have to be your own champion, and you have to submit your own work to these awards because you don't have an agent to do it on your behalf, and it's usually the agents that will push you to submit, and to like, well, they'll either do it for you, or they'll probably know someone. If they're a good agent, they'll know someone on the panel and be like, look, take a look at this work, or, you know, foot in the door kind of thing. But yeah, when it came to that, it was a shoot for Jaded London. It was for their Neutrals collection, which is like a bunch of tracksuits. I think there are 5 different colors, and like black, orange, all the other colors. But yeah, basically that was a fashion film all shot on a Moco rig, which is a robot arm. And
oh my gosh, yes, you said this.
Yeah, and it's like a little like you put a camera on the end of a robot arm, and you program all of these movements in the computer, and then put it in the right position and press play, and then it'll move from this point to this point, doing it various speeds, whatever. And so it takes a lot of prep to get to that point where you can press play. And
so no one gets battered over the head.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So what is the benefit? Like, what's the value of using a robot? Is it a specific style that they were after?
Yeah. So basically, the concept of the video, originally the director wanted to build 5 boxes all on top of each other, like 5 box rooms, on top of each other. And he wanted the camera to move from start in, go into one, come out, go into the other, up, and then go all the way up. But there was nowhere near enough budget to facilitate like a structural build, 5 boxes on top of each other.
Essentially a building.
Yeah. And so the way in which we got around that was to use transitions, and it was like the wipe transition. When you were in box 1, the camera would come out, wipe past the top, and then you'd be technically and you'd stitch it and be coming out the bottom of the next one. And so that's kind of how we did it. And yeah, we really needed a Moco arm for that. There was no other way we could move the camera like that, in and out so quickly, and transition at a point where it would then meet and stitch correctly into the next scene. And so that was needs to be very, very specific, and there was no other way. Can't do that handheld, can't do that with a Steadicam, can't really do that with a crane. You'd have to do it with a robot arm that would hit that point every single time, and you have to be so precise.
So precise, so that you can cut.
You can stitch it. You don't even really need to VFX it. You just stitch it, cut it in the edit, and it will go seamlessly into the next scene, kind of thing.
That's really cool. And
so yeah,
I mean, like, did you learn to use robots at uni?
No.
How do you learn? How do you learn to use a robot?
It's a good question. So I didn't use it. I didn't like program it personally. We got on, shout out G6 Moco up in Manchester, Rami and Kane and Andy. That's it, Andy. So Rami, Kane and Andy. These guys kind of came down. Luckily I worked with them before, but they came down from Manchester, kind of the night before, bought their robot in a truck, and we did a lot of prep work on that. We did a pre-vis, which was like in a computer, and it was like a very rough, low-res version.
So like a simulation of what it was going to look like.
Basically a simulation of what it was going to look like. And then we kind of did some tweaks, and that was a process in itself. But we probably did that like 2 weeks before the shoot. And then come the shoot day, everything was basically in order. We just needed everything to be in that space at the right time, and yeah, luckily it was. Like, shout out everyone on that job. Ant Hensman, my guy, of course, he did the art direction and built all these sets. Really was a production designer, built all these sets, and it was mental. Like, we would shoot in one set, then move to the other, and then whilst we're shooting in one would be being deconstructed and like getting out. But it was such a tight ship.
How come? Why? What was the rush?
Because we had to be out of the studio at a certain time, and so like if we would have left this D-rig at the end of the day, we wouldn't have been out on time. And so it was such a slick operation, and it really was. It was so bare bones, that shoot. There was no production company, no real producer. Ryan, the director, produced it himself. And so there was no real kind of infrastructure to that shoot. It's like basically me, Ryan, and Ant all coming together, sticking our heads together, and just working it out. And yeah, you know, that's a task in itself, because usually you need a producer to help you do a lot of the stuff that you need to do. But you know, we just felt so strongly about what we were trying to do and felt it was innovative and it hadn't been done before, of which it really hadn't. And the funny thing is, since that shoot, I've now seen that type of video be done by people, so that it's obviously being referenced, and obviously has like the Nux and Law kind of one has gravity, and obviously people were attracted to that and try and replicate it, but obviously can't replicate it as well as we did. So
of course not. That would never be possible. In terms of, that's actually kind of an interesting talking point in and of itself, is being inspired without copying and, you know, figuring out your own style. Obviously you're taking influence from what you see. No one thinks up something out of thin air, really. How do you go about finding inspiration and sort of taking from it what you need without it ever being there to kind of bite you in the ass down the line, someone saying you've copied this or whatever?
Yeah. It's a good question. Where, like, I get inspired by everything, really. It's the moments in my life that have led me all to this point have inspired me or molded me in like the way I am. But when it comes to like kind of, I don't know, you can kind of split that question into two, really. It's like where do I find inspiration myself? But it's like, where do you find inspiration for shoots? And like, you know, and so I'll start with the second one, where it's like, where do you find inspiration for like the shoots that I'm on? It's like, because that game is a bit messy at the moment. It's a bit copy and paste kind of job from different creatives. You know, they obviously see something they like and they're like, oh yeah, let's just do that. And, you know, they just rip the idea, and that happens so much these days. And, you know, you'd like to think they would take that idea and make it their own. But unfortunately, like, the game that we're in is crazy, and you see a lot of things over and over and over again. And it's quite funny when someone does something original, you start to see it crop up everywhere, and you're like, oh, like, come on guys, like,
it's crazy.
Yeah, you're like, come on, like, we're supposed to be creative. But, you know, I guess that's the industry wanting things and it moving so quickly that you have to be reproducing and producing things all the time.
There's no time to even give it too much thought. It's okay, that's great, we'll run with it.
Exactly, yeah. And, you know, half of the, you know, well, not half, pretty much all of these music videos, you know, a commissioner will probably email a director and be like, can we have a treatment by the end of the day or like midday? And you're like, okay, well, can I not know like a bit about, you know, what you want first, and then kind of curate an idea around that? It's like, no, we want to see your treatment. And it's like, when you're kind of in a system like that, you have, you know, there's no space to be original and think out of the box. You always have to like maybe take that reference that you saw last night on Instagram and be like, oh, we could do something about that. And it's you know, there's no room to essentially kind of be original, or, you know, you kind of have to be original in your time off more than on the job these days, and kind of have an original idea in your back pocket almost, and then you kind of, you know, bring that out. But yeah, like but then for me, being original and taking inspiration, I have to switch off from everything. I have to not look on my phone.
Mm-hmm.
I have to not like look on the internet, like just be within my own person. And then I kind of find myself, and I find what I don't like and what I do like. And like, if I do like a drawing, be like, oh, that was cool. Or like did like one mark, be like, yeah, that was sick. And when another mark, be like, oh, no, I don't like that. I don't like the way, you know. I think that's kind of how I stay original, is by kind of being within my own person and not getting distracted too much.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, it's almost as though you have to take inspiration from the things that don't directly relate to your industry. For instance, I don't know, would it be like the way a bird flies or whatever, and that's how the camera moves?
The way a building looks, or
whatever.
Yeah, Yeah, you're so right. I really like how you put that. It's, you have to find inspiration in things that, you're not directly working on. That's actually a really good point.
Because it can definitely interrupt your own creativity if you, because we're constantly consuming content, like constantly. And so how can your brain have any time to like think about what it likes if it's just being, fed so much information?
Being blindsided by all of this noise. Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. And to be honest with you, that's something I don't actively do enough.
I was going to say, have you done any sort of like getaways on your own, in the woods, cabin vibes? Who's that singer? There's a singer that wrote a whole album.
I would like to, and I'd find that whole process really interesting if I did that. But like, I don't know, I almost create too much at the moment that if I did that, I probably wouldn't create. I would just chill.
That's the other thing, isn't it? Is like when most people's creativity comes out when they're not even thinking about being creative. Like, there's nothing worse than saying, okay, well, I'm going to go on this holiday to be creative and make an album, because you're not going to be creative.
You can't force it sometimes, can you? But like,
a shower job, isn't it?
Yeah. But like, I would be really interested in that. And I think in order to do that, I would need to take a month off or 2 months off and then go out this said cabin and find myself kind of thing. I think I would just need to give myself time. I wouldn't block off a week and be like, I'm going to go out there and make a painting, because I would probably resent it. And it would seem forced to me. And so, for me to do that, I'd probably block off a month, 2 months, go out there and kind of create within my own time. And that's kind of when you find yourself in a sense and hit those, gold moments of like, look, no one's telling me to do this, but I feel inspired to do it today. And I think that's where originality comes from. It's not forcing it. It's being there and looking around and having an eye open and being like, no, this is cool. I'm going to make something. Yeah,
for sure. It's like allowing yourself the space to just think outside of the box, essentially. You can't put pressure on that. Yeah,
definitely. And then, to be fair, kind of going back to the original question, like what inspires me? Yeah, everything inspires me. Like music specifically, I think music has so much inspiration in it and so much meaning and so much kind of feels, basically. As soon as you listen to a track, whether you're going to like it or not, and like whether you're going to press the skip button or you're going to press the repeat button, kind of thing. And yeah, music's been a big one. And the way in which like certain artists then hold themselves and present themselves to the world, I find that super inspiring, because it's not just, obviously music is a chunk of them, but then I go and research them and look into them and like, wow, this guy's like a stand-up guy, or like, wow, this guy like took risks all his life. And just generally find that super inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. I think sometimes you just need that little nudge to see that someone else has done it and succeeded with it, to kind of allow yourself to take risk or, try an alternative path. And speaking of alternative paths, I just gave myself the most perfect segue. Let's talk about your other baby, the trenches.
How did that come about? Come on. Cool. So I'm glad we're talking about it, because the trenches came about for multiple reasons, really. Firstly, I kind of saw a bit of a gap in the market for it. I saw no one was having these conversations openly in front of people, and like, I kind of put myself in a position of when I first started out in the industry. I knew no one. None of my family were in creative industries. My mum's a teacher. My dad sells mattresses, and so there's no creative or film link in there. And so, as a young boy wanting to come into the industry, I was like, where do I turn? And I think just to have this kind of information that is accessible is invaluable. And like, I would have loved to have tuned in and listened to these people who are in the industry talk about their journey, how they got in, what they like, what they don't like, and just generally get a feeling of what the industry is like. It's
like insider information. You're basically allowing people to spy on the industry without having to step foot in it.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I don't like, because I do feel the film industry is quite a private industry, and a lot of it is behind closed doors. Obviously, people need their privacy, especially if we're working with artists or people doing cool creative things. You know, you're going to want to keep things secret and under wraps, but there comes a point where people's egos get too involved and they think they're better, and it's just like, no, we're all human, we're all in the same place. We were all definitely in the same boat at one point. Why not be open and transparent about it? And then, yes, secondly, a real pet peeve of mine is kind of going on Instagram and kind of seeing work, or like seeing other people's work, which is great, but ultimately it kind of brings you down. And people look so busy on Instagram and post their work, yeah, like I said, which is great and it's good for them, but it starts to affect me and other people. Like, it definitely started to affect me when I was seeing my peers doing all, you know, doing great things, or people who people who would get signed before me, and I'd be like, oh my God, like, why aren't I signed? Why aren't I doing this job?
That's such a difficult thing to admit as well. Sorry to interrupt you,
that's all right.
Like, to admit, because ultimately you're happy for your friends and you're happy for your peers, but, you know, we are all humans, and it can make you feel disheartened. And I think some people might be judgmental of the fact that that's how, like, that you're so open about feeling that way. But actually, I think it's probably a very common experience. Even
when you're doing big jobs and you just finish like this big job, you might go on Instagram and see someone who's doing a bigger job, and you're like, oh man, like, what? I didn't shoot on film, they're shooting on film. And it's, you know, you're always going to compare yourself at the end of the day, even though it's your own journey, and every journey and story is completely different. I felt social media within the film industry was pushing in one direction, and I didn't like where it was going. And so I kind of realized how toxic that was, and can be toxic to people, especially young people coming up. And I was like, no, I need to use this platform for something good, to do good. And that's kind of how The Trenches was kind of born, because I didn't want myself to be posting work and making other people feel bad. So I'm like, what else can I post? What else can I do? And it's like, post these clips about people talking about the industry. That's way more helpful and like intuitive to someone who first is starting out, or even someone who is currently in the film industry. That's what, like, that is such a flip compared to, hey, this is me, this is my film, this is what I've done, look at me. It's, no, this is me, this is my journey, this is what I've learned, and it's sharing that knowledge. And it just it flips it on its head almost, the way in which people, you know, go on social media. And like, social media is just so toxic and so flashy, and it's, you know, I just wanted to do something against the grain and do something good.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely comes across, like I said, even in the name, you're sort of spelling it out. It's like, yeah, I am, well, you're not saying this directly, this is my interpretation, but I think you're a successful person. But even you acknowledge that it is the trenches. Like, it's not easy, and it's never going to be easy.
It's not easy, no.
No.
But yeah, that's definitely, yeah, I just felt super strongly about that. And the way in which it first-handedly made me feel. And I was like, look, well, if I'm feeling like this, other people are going to feel like this. And like, it's definitely been a thing throughout my whole career of comparing myself to other people. And, you know, you don't get over it, but you can make it better. And maybe don't post about that work, and post about your story and advice and, you know, different content. But it's just, it's the same thing really, but it's just not making that other person on the receiving end feel bad about themselves.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's also like, it's such a competitive industry. People like to keep their cards really close to their chest. And so, like you say, there's not a lot of information about people's experiences, or even just like actual, like the technicalities of things. And so you're kind of just pulling back the curtain and being like, you know, we're here. We're not afraid that you're going to come and steal our jobs. Like, listen, take from it what you will, and then, you know, be on your merry way.
Being freelance, you are pitched against each other, and it's you versus you. It's like, I rarely meet other DOPs. Like I've started to through the trenches, and I'm like, okay, cool. We're actually all kind of in the same boat here. Otherwise, it can be pretty, you resenting this one person who's got all the work, and yeah, like we're all in the same boat, And it's been great to chat to other DPs about work.
Have you learnt stuff?
Oh yeah. I found this whole process very enriching. Just through the art of conversation, like in a sense, like you don't meet up with people just to have a conversation these days. You meet up with someone to go for a drink or watch a film or whatever, and it's like you just don't sit down and chat. And I guess it's kind of like therapy, like it's we've all got issues and issues about the industry and whatever, but if we all come together and chat about it, we can only walk away from it feeling better about ourselves.
I totally agree. So I've got 2 final questions for you. One is, how would you define your style filmically? And also, is there any kind of advice that you would give to someone that is starting out?
My style, I don't know. I don't think I have too much of a style. You might be able to tell me more about my style than me, because obviously
you kind of need a second eye, don't you?
Yeah. Like obviously it's how it's perceived by people. I don't know. I wouldn't say I have too much of a style. I like contrast and dark images. Like my girlfriend will be able to back that up, because I always take really dark images of her and she goes, "Why is it so dark?" I'm like, "Because it looks good." Like,
is she like, "My face isn't even visible"?
Yeah. I was like, "Because you're in the shadows and it looks sick." It's like the latest Batman film, for anyone that's seen. That was super dark, but
I loved that.
Holy
actually.
crap, that was sick.
Is that the one with Zoe Kravitz in it?
Yeah.
Oh, she's amazing.
Yeah, and like that whole film looked amazing and looked different. I hadn't seen a film that looked like that. Mainly, it was so dark, but it aided the story and it aided that world that it was in. And I was like, cool, that's a bit of me,
Did you show it to your girlfriend for reference of your
Yeah, I do. And to be fair, I regularly watch that over and over again, to be fair, 'cause it's so sick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a style, and I think if you do have a style as a DOP, that's great for you. People will come to you for that style, which is great. But I don't know. I wouldn't like to have too much of a strong style, to be honest, because that's not what I am. I think my style is less aesthetics and more personality and
process and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And my style was about being open, thinking on your feet, chatting to people on a level, asking those questions about, what do you think about this? What light do you want? What lens do you want? It's not really aesthetics in my eyes, I don't think, which is quite a weird answer because people would assume that. But yeah, I pride myself just on my ability to kind of think on my feet, and I think being on set, you really need that, because things change all the time, and if you approach it in the right attitude and in the right way and have an open mind, you can get things done. But maybe aesthetics wise, maybe a bit grungy, a bit gritty. I think I shoot a lot of rap videos, or I think a lot of people know me for rap videos, and so yeah, no, someone said you make rap videos high fashion, so that's probably
what a lovely thing for someone to say.
Style.
Yeah,
but I don't. Someone said that, and I was like, oh, cool. No, first of all, I was like, oh, that's really cool, and then kind of came away from it being like, wait, do people just think I shoot rap videos? I was like, I shoot way more than that.
The overthinking kicks in.
Yeah, and so I guess recently I have been trying to maybe say no to the classic rap video and push my career in other ways.
Yeah. And any advice?
And any advice to people? Oh, that's a loaded question. Or
maybe let's rephrase it. What is a piece of advice that has helped you in your career that someone gave you?
Sure. To be fair, I don't think anyone's given me top advice.
Good luck. Just do with it what you will. You're great.
No, I guess this isn't really a career thing, but my parents have always kind of preached that everything happens for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that would probably be my general kind of advice. Everything happens for a reason. You don't need to rush things. Things will happen, or things won't happen.
And it was all for the reason.
Yeah, and it's, you know, that reason might not be apparent in that moment, but it will come to fruition at some point. Any advice I would give to younger filmmakers or people just starting out is meet people, experiment, don't give a fuck, go out there, do it, don't listen to anyone else. Like, take that risk, because that risk will probably pay off. If you put enough time and effort and heart into it, that risk will pay off. And take those risks. Honestly, like, I would not be here today without taking risks. And you just have to think, fuck it. And you have to, like, in that process, people are going to laugh. People are going to be like, oh, why are you doing that? Why are you doing this? Or like, oh, haha, look at that guy. Don't care about that. Don't care, because people will forget about it so quickly, but people also want to be your best friend when you make it. Or, you know, I like when I was a kid, I had, you know, didn't have much confidence, and I really let that affect me. And then it was only till I started learning that you shouldn't care. That's when things started going well. And I think, yeah, that should just be, that's probably my top advice. Just don't care. Just go out and do it. Go get it.
It is so funny when, like, as you get older and people, they start noticing, you know, the hard work that's paying off, and those that were kind of critical in the beginning then want to be your best friend.
They all come back around, don't they? It's quite funny. But you know, I'm all up for that. Like, I'm all up for. You
seem like a laid back guy. You don't hold grudges.
Yeah, and like, you know, it is what it is, and yeah, I'm gonna keep cracking on. You know,
keep charging.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
But yeah, all right, cool. Well, yeah, thanks for all those questions.
No worries. Sorry if it was a bit overwhelming.
No. You're all good. I feel sorry for the people having to listen to my ramble. I feel like I rambled a bit, but I hope you've all found it helpful. But Jodie, yeah, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you for agreeing to it.
No. Was there any plugs that you want to give to the people?
The podcast Instagram is @aplacetoponder. My personal social media is @_Jodie Powell. And I'm also dabbling in a bit of photography right now, so I'm going to plug my photography account.
Oh, wicked. We didn't even get onto that. What?
Nothing. No, we don't need to talk about me. I'm very early on in my career. We don't
Next time we'll do one in a year, and we'll see. Come back.
When I've made it.
Yeah, when you've made it.
I'm coming back.
Yeah, cool. You're on my list.
Thank you. And yeah, it's @Ziggy.
Oh, she's got a ring.
SNAPZZ.
Ziggy Snaps. All right, cool. Well, Jodie, thanks so much for coming through.
Thank you.
All right, peace out. Bye.